Everybody loves the quarterback position, and there are so many new faces going into the 2021 college football season. I thought I'd make it easy on you guys, as in today's video, we're going to meet all 130 FBS quarterbacks, quickly go through who they are, so you can be brought up to speed with every single starting quarterback in the nation. And without further ado, let's get straight into this one, and be sure to hit that like button, as this video took forever to make. We're going to go in chronological order by school, and we're first going to start out with Air Force. Their starting quarterback will be Haaziq Daniels, and coming out of high school, he was a 0-star recruit and is the projected starter this year after he has passed for nearly 433 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 picks so far in his time there. Moving on to Akron, the starting quarterback will be Kato Nelson. He was a 3-star recruit from the class of 2016 and the number 56 pro-style quarterback. He passed for over 5,000 yards and 34 touchdowns in his career so far, while also running the ball for over 600 yards and 2 scores as well. The only thing that's a problem is that he has not played since 2019, but he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the MAC. Heading over to Alabama, everyone knows the new quarterback will be Bryce Young after Mac Jones is now gone. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of Mater Dei High School and is a projected Heisman contender. He played a little bit last year and passed for 1 touchdown, but everyone knows he's going to have a huge season. Moving over to Appalachian State, we have a familiar face in Chase Brice. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and originally decided to go to Clemson, where he most notably helped them beat Syracuse. He would transfer to Duke last year, where he had a pretty tough season and things did not go to plan. He'd get one more shot, as he would go over to the Sun Belt and join Appalachian State. He replaces one of the best quarterbacks in school history in Zach Thomas, and I think Brice will be a big name. For Arizona, Gunnar Cruz is likely going to be the starter, as he is probably going to beat out Will Plummer. Cruz was originally a 3-star recruit in the class of 2018, and actually originally went to Washington State. He transferred to Arizona, where he'll now be playing for new head coach Jedd Fisch, and I think he'll be a good option, but I am worried about the Arizona team this year. At Arizona State, we have Jayden Daniels, who is a 5-star recruit coming out of the state of California and chose to commit to Herm Edwards. He has now started 2 years for the Sun Devils and passed for over 3,600 yards and 22 touchdowns with 7 more scores on the ground. Going over to the SEC for the Arkansas Razorbacks, we have KJ Jefferson, who is a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He is seen as the future of the program, but does need to work on his passing a little bit. He had a big game against Missouri last year, and in his Razorbacks career, he has combined for 7 touchdowns and will be the new face of that program. Going just a couple miles down the road, we have Arkansas State, and they are now under former Tennessee legend Butch Jones. They nabbed a quarterback from an ACC school, as James Blackman will now be the starting quarterback. He was a high 3-star recruit in the class of 2017, and actually started as a true freshman for the Seminoles when Deondre Francois went down. From there, he played a lot, as he passed for over 5,000 yards and 43 scores there, and he will now start for the Red Wolves. Army's not a team that throws the ball out a lot, but Tyhier Tyler will be the starter for 2021. He was not even in the top 4,000 players in the class of 2017. He has 5 touchdowns to his name at Army, but it's not like they pass the ball a lot anyways. At Auburn, Bo Nix will be back for his 3rd straight year as a starting quarterback for new head coach Bryan Harsin. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and is the son of a legend in the program. He has passed for nearly 5,000 yards and 28 passing touchdowns, with 4 more rushing scores on the ground so far. Heading up to last year's MAC champions, Ball State's quarterback has been there for a while, and his name is Drew Plitt. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and the number 86 pro-style quarterback. He's had a great career for the Cardinals so far, as he's passed for nearly 6,500 yards and 50 touchdowns, with 12 more rushing touchdowns on the ground, and he could be the best quarterback in the MAC. After losing Charlie Brewer, Baylor is now headed in the direction of Gary Bohannon. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and originally committed to Matt Rhule. He hasn't played a lot in his career so far, as he only does have 5 touchdowns, and the majority of that came in 2019. Dave Aranda has a difficult year ahead of him, and I'm pumped to see what Bohannon can do, but I'm also cautiously skeptical. Boise State plays tomorrow night, and they are under a new head coach, but they will have a steady name at the quarterback position in Hank Bachmeier. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and beat out USC transfer Jack Sears for the starting job. He's passed for over 3,000 yards and 15 touchdowns in 2 years in the Bronco uniform. Heading across the country to Boston College, Jeff Hafley has brought a new system to Chestnut Hill, and they have their best quarterback since Matt Ryan. Phil Jurkovec was a top 100 player and transferred from Notre Dame to the Eagles. He passed for over 2,500 yards and combined for 22 touchdowns last year, and he could be in the NFL soon, and could be the third best quarterback in the ACC. Bowling Green will have a former Boston College Eagle as their starting quarterback, as Matt McDonald will take over those duties. He came out of the state of California, but was only a 3-star recruit and originally took his talents to Steve Addazio at Boston College. He eventually transferred to Bowling Green, and he's only had 4 touchdowns in his career. Buffalo is going to take a little bit of a step back as Lance Leipold is also gone to be the head coach at Kansas. Kyle Van Treese is back at the quarterback spot, and he was the 3-star quarterback coming out of the state of Ohio. He's passed for over 3,000 yards and 27 combined scores as a Bull, and could be one of the better quarterbacks in the MAC as well. BYU just lost Zach Wilson, and they're going to need to find a new quarterback, so the starter will be Jaron Hall. Coming out of the state of Utah, he was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2016, and he has passed for over 420 yards and 4 touchdowns in his career, and he has big shoes to fill. Heading over to the Pac-12 in California, we'll have Chase Garbers as he is back as the starter. He is the brother of Ethan Garbers, and Chase himself was a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school, and in 3 years starting for the Golden Bears, he's passed for over 4,000 yards and 41 touchdowns. Jim McElwain is trying to save his career at Central Michigan, and it looks like he'll be nabbing a former Pac-12 transfer to be the starter. Jacob Sermon is likely going to be the guy, and he was a former top 100 quarterback coming out of high school and originally took his talents to Washington. After he lost the job to Jacob Eason, he decided to transfer, and he settled on the Central Michigan program, and he's going to try to live up to the hype. Charlotte is one of the newer FBS teams, and they have a new quarterback in Texas A&M transfer James Foster. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and originally committed to Missouri, but later would flip to Texas A&M. He now gets his chance to finish his career the right way, and he's played very minimal so far. The best quarterback in Cincinnati football is likely going to be Desmond Ridder when it's all said and done, but that was not expected as he was very under-recruited coming out of high school. He has since started for 3 years under Luke Fickell and has passed for over 7,000 yards and 79 combined touchdowns, and he could help Cincinnati become the first Group of 5 team to ever make the college football playoff. With the Trevor Lawrence era now over, DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the next great one. He was a 5-star recruit and the top quarterback prospect in his class, and he will be a superstar this year for the Clemson Tigers. He passed for nearly 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns in a couple of starts last year, and has all the tools, weapons, and talents to be a tremendous player. Coastal Carolina was the Cinderella school of last year, and the Chanticleers are back and loaded up for 2021. Jamie Chadwell returns his star quarterback in Grayson McCall, but it was not always supposed to be that way, as he was a 2-star recruit and barely a top 3,000 player in the class of 2019, but he has made his impact known as he's passed for over 2,500 yards and has 34 combined touchdowns in his career. The Colorado Buffaloes were a surprise team last year, and after Sam Neuer left for Oregon State, Brendan Lewis will be the starting quarterback. He was battling it out with former Tennessee transfer JT Shrout, but he got hurt, and the former 3-star recruit coming out of Texas will be the starter. Lewis has scored 1 touchdown in his career, and this should be more of a development year for him. Colorado State is now under head coach Steve Addazio, and the Rams will start quarterback Todd Centio. He was formerly a 3-star recruit and originally took his talents to Temple before he left for Colorado State. He's passed for nearly 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns in his 4-year career, and I'd have him near the bottom of this year's quarterback rankings. After Chase Bryce left for Appalachian State, the Duke Blue Devils' new quarterback will be Gunnar Holmberg. He was a high 3-star quarterback coming out of the state of North Carolina and has been a backup so far in his career. He has 1 touchdown pass in 2 years, and he is the worst quarterback in the ACC right now. Gardner Minshew went to East Carolina back in the day, but the next great quarterback for that team is Holton Ahlers. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of North Carolina, but he's had a tremendous career so far for the Pirates. He's passed for over 7,000 yards and has 63 combined touchdowns. He's a name to watch out for. Eastern Michigan is not the most well-known program on the planet, but Preston Hutchinson is the man under center for this team. He was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, but he has always been a great player. He has passed for over 2,000 yards and has 25 combined scores, and that was only in 1 year as a starter. Florida International is under head coach Butch Davis, and he had an NFL quarterback in James Morgan just a couple years ago, but they had horrible QB play in 2020, and they look to be ranked near the bottom. Kalen Wiggins is likely going to be the guy, and he was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, and I'm curious to see what this team's going to do. With Kyle Trask now gone to the NFL, Florida is anticipating Emory Jones to step up and be the next great quarterback. He was a 5-star recruit at one point, but would flip from Ohio State to Dan Mullen, and he has been a career backup for the Gators. He has passed for nearly 6,000 yards and 13 combined touchdowns in 3 years, but the potential is there. But if he does struggle, Anthony Richardson will be ready. Florida Atlantic is looking to have a huge year with a familiar name in quarterback N'Kosi Perry. He was a 4-star gunslinger who originally took his talents to Miami, and he actually started a lot of games there. He passed for over 2,500 yards and 27 combined touchdowns as a Hurricane, and he will now take that to Willie Taggart's Owls program. As of now, the Florida State Seminoles have not named a starting quarterback. We are going to give the nod to McKenzie Milton. He was a low-ranked quarterback coming out of high school and chose to go to UCF. He passed for nearly 9,000 yards and 92 combined touchdowns as a Knight before a horribly gruesome injury, which many thought would end his career. He would recover and get cleared as he would decide to transfer to Florida State, where he could start right away. Fresno State Bulldogs have already played their first game, but Jake Haener has been the star for them. Before he was a Bulldog, he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and chose to go to Washington. He eventually left for Fresno State and has now passed for over 2,500 yards and 21 combined scores in his career. JT Daniels was a 5-star recruit coming out of Mater Dei High School, and he will look to lead the Georgia Bulldogs to the playoff. He originally went to USC, but after a knee injury and the rise of Keaton Slovis, he left for Georgia. He passed for over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns in his career so far, and could be a 2021 first-round pick and a Heisman contender. The starting quarterback for the Georgia Southern Eagles will be Justin Tomlin. He was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school and has very limited experience so far, but he does have 3 touchdowns to his name. Unfortunately, he will miss the first 2 games of the year because of academic issues, but he will be the guy moving forwards. After that win over Tennessee in 2019, Georgia State became a little bit more familiar to college football fans. Cornelius Brown will be the new starting quarterback for the Panthers, as he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. He passed for over 2,500 yards and 24 scores in his career, and he'll be a fun player to watch. Jeff Collins changed the Georgia Tech scheme, and he will rely on second-year quarterback Jeff Sims to lead the way. Sims was a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school and originally committed to Florida State, but he decided to flip to the Yellow Jackets, where in his first year, he passed for over 2,000 yards and had 19 combined touchdowns, and many people think he could be a breakout candidate. After Cole McDonald became an NFL quarterback, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors have found their new quarterback in Chevan Cordero. Coming out of Honolulu, Chevan was a 2-star recruit and was never supposed to amount to much. He passed for nearly 4,000 yards and 39 touchdowns in his career so far, but he struggled tremendously in Week 1 against UCLA. Houston lost to Garrett King and are now in year 3 under head coach Dana Holgorsen, and Clayton Tune will be the starter once again. Tune was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Texas, and so far he's passed for over 4,000 yards and 29 combined touchdowns, as the Cougars program is trying to get back to relevancy in the American. For Illinois, Brandon Peters was the starting quarterback going into the year, but against Nebraska he injured his shoulder and he is questionable right now, so Art Sitkowski took over and played pretty well. Sitkowski was a huge name as he was a 4-star recruit coming out of IMG Academy and actually originally committed to Miami before he flipped to Rutgers. He struggled tremendously in Piscataway, but he'll be getting his new chance to save his career, as he is famously known for only passing for 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 20 picks. Indiana saw a breakout year in 2020, and a big part of that was Michael Penix Jr. He was a 3-star quarterback coming out of Tampa, Florida, and after originally committing to Tennessee, his offer was pulled and he went to Indiana. So far as a Hoosier, he's thrown for over 3,000 yards and 29 touchdowns, and some say he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten, but the big question is, can he stay healthy? Iowa always has consistent quarterback play, and Spencer Petras is the next great quarterback there. He was a high 3-star quarterback coming out of California and flipped from Oregon State to the Hawkeyes. He passed for over 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns last year and led the Hawkeyes to 6 straight wins to end the 2020 campaign. Brock Purdy is back for another year with the Iowa State Cyclones, and the pressure is on him to play well and lead them to the promised lands. He was a late rising 3-star recruit out of Arizona, and he almost went to Alabama. He started as a freshman for the Cyclones and has not looked back ever since, as he's passed for over 9,000 yards and 80 combined touchdowns, and this could be the best Iowa State team in school history. Kansas has been abysmal since Mark Mangino left, but Jalen Daniels is the quarterback of the future for new head coach Lance Leipold. Daniels was a 3-star recruit coming out of California, but he did not have a great freshman year, but I mean, who could have? He threw for 700 yards with 4 picks and 4 combined touchdowns, and I'm curious to see what kind of player he becomes this year. Kansas State returns consistency at quarterback with Skylar Thompson coming back, and he's expected to take a jump. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and has had a solid career so far for the Wildcats. He's thrown for over 5,000 yards and combined for 55 touchdowns. Kent State has one of the better returning quarterbacks in the MAC in Dustin Croom. He was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, but with his strong arm and play style, he's made the most of his time there. He's thrown for over 4,000 yards and 47 scores, and I'm pumped to see how he will lead the Golden Flashes this year. Kentucky has struggled to find elite quarterback play, but Will Levis is trying to change that narrative. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Connecticut and actually went to Penn State. He was average in his time there, only throwing for 700 yards and 9 scores, so he decided to leave State College for Lexington, Kentucky. Liberty hasn't had many big-time quarterbacks in his school's history, but Malik Willis will be the best one to ever walk through there. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and originally went to Auburn, but then decided to go across the country to be with Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Last year, he had an amazing season as he combined for over 4,000 yards and 37 touchdowns just in 1 year starting. I'm really pumped to watch him. Louisiana is one of the top 5 winningest programs over the last few years, and the Raging Cajuns are arguably the best Group of 5 program behind Cincinnati. They're anchored by an experienced quarterback named Levi Lewis, as he was a 3-star recruit coming out of Baton Rouge and has been spectacular for them over the last few years. He has passed for over 6,000 yards and 63 scores, and he will only add to that number. Louisiana Monroe is not the most prestigious school on the planet, but they have a big-name quarterback in Rhett Rodriguez. He's obviously the son of Rich Rodriguez, and he was a low 3-star recruit who went on to play for Arizona. He only passed for 600 yards and 4 touchdowns in 4 years there, but he will now get his chance as he transferred to the Warhawks. Louisiana Tech had Jeff Driscoll back in the day, but they got another big-time quarterback transfer in Austin Kendall. He was a former 4-star guy who originally went to Oklahoma, but after not playing there, he transferred to West Virginia where he was benched. He passed for 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns in his career, and I'm excited to see what he can do in his last rally. Lamar Jackson was a superstar for Louisville, but they have been trying to find his replacement, and the debate is still out on Michael Cunningham. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Alabama and committed to the Cardinals. He has started 2 straight years for them and has passed for over 5,000 yards and 36 combined scores. Joe Burrow was a superstar for LSU, and with Miles Brennan being hurt, Max Johnson is now the guy. He was the son of former Florida State quarterback Brad Johnson, but Max brought his talents to LSU instead of the Seminoles. He played a bit last year and helped them beat Florida, as he ended up throwing for over 1,000 yards and 11 combined touchdowns. Marshall has a solid quarterback option in Grant Wells. They are under a new head coach, but coming out of Charleston, West Virginia, Wells was a 3-star recruit and has had a great career so far. He has passed for over 2,000 yards and 20 combined touchdowns and could have a breakout 2021 year. Maryland hasn't had a star quarterback in quite a while, but Taulia Tagovailoa is trying to change that. He is the brother of Tua and was a 4-star quarterback that went on to go to Bama. After not playing much, he reunited with his offensive coordinator Mike Locksley at Maryland, where he had an up-and-down first year. He looked great at times and looked terrible at other times, but he ended up passing for over 1,000 yards with 9 combined touchdowns. Replacing Brady White at Memphis will be a challenge, but they have a good player in Grant Gunnell. There is still a quarterback battle going on, but he was one of the best quarterbacks in Texas high school football history, so I think he'll get the job done. He was only a 3-star recruit though, and he chose to go to Arizona. After some turmoil there, he decided to transfer to Memphis this past offseason, as he's passed over 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns in his football career. Derek King was a big-time quarterback recruit who originally committed to TCU before flipping to Tom Herman in Houston, and after a great Cougar career, he sat out and left for Miami, where he had a pretty good 2020 season. In his career so far, he has combined for over 10,000 yards and 105 touchdowns, which could be the best in America. Miami, Ohio has a big name at the helm in Brett Gabbert. Yes, he is the younger brother of Blaine Gabbert, as he was a 3-star recruit coming out of St. Louis. He broke records as a freshman for the Redhawks, but after getting injured last year, he's only passed for 3,000 yards and 17 combined touchdowns, but watch out for him in 2021. Jim Harbaugh named Cade McNamara the starting quarterback, and he could be the best guy they've had in a while. He broke Nevada State records, and after originally committing to Notre Dame, he flipped to Michigan. He started a few games last year and did look good as he passed for over 500 yards and 6 scores, but he ended up getting hurt. The Michigan State Spartans have a quarterback battle between Anthony Russo and Peyton Thorne, but Russo should be the guy. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Pennsylvania and originally signed to play for Temple. After passing for over 6,000 yards and 51 touchdowns in 3 years, he left for Michigan State, and he could be the best quarterback they've had since Connor Cook. The Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders aren't the most known program, but they have a quarterback prospect who a lot of people did know at one point. Bailey Hockman was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, and after originally committing to Georgia, he flipped to Florida State. He struggled there and eventually transferred to NC State before he got hurt and left for Middle Tennessee. He's passed for over 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns in 2 years, and he will look to save his career at a lower level. Tanner Morgan led the Golden Gophers to a great 2019 season, but after a bad 2020 year, he's looking to redeem himself this season. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Kentucky, and PJ Fleck really liked him, so he got him to commit there. So far, he's passed for over 6,000 yards and 48 touchdowns, but this is the make or break year for Tanner. With Mike Leach at the helm, a quarterback will have a great year at Mississippi State, and Jack Abraham should be the guy. Coming out of Louisiana, Abraham was a 3-star recruit who committed to Southern Miss, where he had a pretty good career there. He will take his 7,000 yards and 48 touchdowns to Starkville and could be a hidden gem in the college football world. The Missouri Tigers are under a quarterback whispering coach in Elijah Drinkwitz, and they return the reigning SEC Freshman of the Year in Connor Bazelak. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Ohio and chose the Missouri Tigers. After suffering an ACL tear in 2019, he bounced back in 2020 and had a great year, passing for over 2,500 yards and 9 touchdowns. Navy is not a prime destination for quarterbacks, but in a quarterback race, we'll likely see Xavier Arline. He was an unranked 0-star recruit coming out of high school who also played lacrosse, and I'm curious to see how he will do. For NC State, Devin Leary is back as the quarterback, and he could be a breakout star. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and took his talents to the Wolfpack. He passed for over 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns in his career, and I look forward to seeing what he can do. Nebraska's had the same quarterback since Scott Frost took over, as Adrian Martinez is back, but not better than ever. After originally committing to Tennessee, he got his offer pulled and flipped to Nebraska. So far, he has not been able to put it together, but has still passed for over 6,000 yards and 55 touchdowns. Nevada is a sleeper team in college football, and they may have the best kept secret in Carson Strong. After an injury, Strong was only a 3-star recruit coming out of California and started pretty much right away. He passed for over 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns in 2 years and could be the next Zach Wilson, and some say he'll be a first-round pick. The New Mexico Lobos have a familiar face in Terry Wilson at quarterback. Coming out of Oklahoma City, he was a high 3-star recruit who took his talents to Oregon before he went the JUCO route. He settled on Kentucky, led them to a great year, and passed for over 3,500 yards and 30 scores in the process, but he will end his career as a Lobo. While there was a quarterback battle going on with New Mexico State, it looks like Jonah Johnson is going to be the guy moving forwards. He was a 2-star recruit in the JUCO database, but found a way to be the starting Aggie quarterback. He's only thrown for 400 yards and 3 scores, and the Aggies are in a tough spot. The North Carolina Tar Heels have the best quarterback in the nation, as Sam Howell returns for year 3 under Mack Brown. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, but originally committed to Florida State. He would eventually flip to the Tar Heels, and he's had 2 tremendous years there. He has passed for over 7,000 yards and 93 touchdowns and could be the number 1 overall pick next spring. Mason Fine was a legend for North Texas, but a former Tar Heel takes over for the Mean Green. Jace Reuter was a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Kansas and took his talents to North Carolina. After losing the battle, he has since left for Denton, Texas, and he has less than 100 yards and a touchdown to his name. The Northern Illinois program is trying to become the cream of the MAC again, and Rocky Lombardi is trying to take that next step. He was a high 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Iowa and committed to Michigan State. He started a few games last year, but now will head to DeKalb, Illinois. He will bring nearly 2,000 yards passing and 11 touchdowns to the Huskies, and I'm pumped to see what he can do. Hunter Johnson was arguably the number 1 quarterback in his recruiting class, and he is on his last chance in 2021 for Northwestern. After barely playing at Clemson, he left for the Wildcats program and has struggled so far. He has just over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns in his career, and he beat out Ryan Helinski going into 2021. Notre Dame lost Ian Book to graduation, and they look to a transfer to keep stability at the helm for the Irish. Jack Cohen was a high 3-star recruit coming out of New York and decided to take his talents to Wisconsin. He had a pretty decent career there, but after getting beat out by Graham Mertz, he decided to graduate transfer, and he was named the starting quarterback over Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine. Many are skeptical of Cohen's abilities, but we'll have to wait and see what he can do. The Ohio Bobcats have a familiar last name at the quarterback spot, as Curtis Rourke will be the guy. In case you didn't know, his brother Nathan was tremendous for the program over the last few years and actually saw some time in the NFL. So far, Curtis only has 3 touchdowns in his career, but he's only a sophomore, and the sky is the limit for him. Ohio State had a big quarterback battle going into 2021, and when Quinn Ewers decided to reclassify, many wondered if he could get the job. CJ Stroud was named the guy by Ryan Day, and I'm super pumped to see what he can do. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of the state of California after he blew up at the Elite 11 quarterback camp. On his only play last year, he went all the way for a touchdown, and I expect big things from Stroud this year. Oklahoma obviously has their next great quarterback in Spencer Rattler, as coming out of Pinnacle High School, he was a 5-star recruit and the number 1 gunslinger in his class. At times he struggled last year, but by the end of the year he looked like one of the better players in the country, and expect Rattler to have a big season. Spencer Sanders was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and decided to take his talents to Oklahoma State. So far he's had an up and down career, as he has not progressed as much as many people would like, but he has still been pretty good for the Cowboys over the last few years, and if not, it's his last year. Old Dominion is not the biggest football program on the planet, but they have an interesting quarterback situation going on. The coaches have yet to name the guy, but in my opinion, it could be Daryl Mack. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and actually went to UCF. He took over for Mackenzie Milton after he got hurt, and after not playing the last 2 years, he decided to graduate transfer to Old Dominion, where he will bring his 4 touchdowns to the Monarchs. Ole Miss is a sleeper playoff team in 2021, and that is because of their quarterback, Matt Corral. He was originally a 5-star recruit coming out of California, but after flipping from USC to Florida to Ole Miss, he struggled to start his career. Last year, he broke out onto the scene, and while he did have a couple games with a lot of interceptions, he has a ton of promise and one of the highest ceilings of any player in college football, and I expect him to be really good. The Oregon Ducks will have an experienced quarterback in Anthony Brown. Coming out of the East Coast, he originally took his talents to Boston College, where he was a multi-year starter for the Eagles. He decided to graduate transfer to Oregon, and after Tyler Shuck beat him out, Brown did not see the field until the Pac-12 championship game. He was recently named the starter by Mario Cristobal, but he will have to fend off freshman Ty Thompson. Oregon State is in a weird spot, as originally I thought it would be Tristan Gebbia, but Sam Neuer got the job. Neuer was an under-recruited player coming out of high school who decided to take his talents to Colorado. He didn't play a whole lot and even thought about leaving the team, but the coaching staff told him to go out for quarterback, and he ended up starting last year and led them to their breakout year. Instead of coming back, he decided to transfer to Oregon State, where he did beat out Tristan Gebbia, who I still believe will be the starter by the end of the year. Penn State has been lacking a truly elite quarterback. Some thought Sean Clifford could be the guy coming out of the state of Ohio, but he has been up and down. After a great 2019 season, he struggled in 2020, and he will look to bounce back in a big way for James Franklin this year. Pittsburgh's quarterback has been there for 100 years it seems, as Kenny Pickett is back for year number 6. He was a high 3-star recruit coming out of high school and saw time as a true freshman. He has not been as productive as you would probably think, but Pittsburgh doesn't exactly run the flashiest offense on the planet. Pickett brings stability and leadership to that position and will try to help Pitt break out in 2021. Jeff Brom is an air raid kind of coach at Purdue, and Jack Plummer is the guy for his system. Plummer was a high 3-star recruit coming out of the state of Arizona and saw action as a redshirt freshman when quarterback Elijah Sindelar went down. Plummer has battled it out with Aiden O'Connell over the last 2 years, but by the end of the 2020 season, it seemed like Plummer was going to be the guy. In my opinion, he has a very high ceiling and could be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten if he puts it all together. Rice is not the biggest football brand on the planet, but they will play 2 quarterbacks in their season opener. The main guy will be Wiley Green, who was a 2-star recruit coming out of the state of Texas, and I'm curious to see how the Owls will do this year. Greg Schiano is going to save the Rutgers program, and they have an experienced guy in Noah Vedral back. He originally went to UCF before he went over to Nebraska following Scott Frost, and then moved over to Greg Schiano at Rutgers. He started last year, and while he may not be the best quarterback in the country, he will get the job done for the Scarlet Knights. San Diego State has been one of the better Group of 5 programs over the last few years, but they have a tight quarterback battle going into 2021. It looks like Jordan Brookshire is going to win the starting job, as he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. So far, he only has 2 touchdowns to his name, but Brady Hoke will get the most out of him. Up next, we have Tate Martell's rival, Nick Starkel. San Jose State broke out last year in 2020, and they look to have another great year in 2021. Starkel originally went to Texas A&M, where he played a good amount of games before he would transfer to San Jose State, where he has since become the main guy, and I look forward to seeing what the Spartans will do this year. Sonny Dykes has turned around the SMU program, and he found his first good quarterback in Shane Buechele, but he's trying to find a player even better, which is when we add in Tanner Mordecai. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and originally went to Oklahoma, but after being a backup, he transferred to the Mustangs program, where he will start. South Alabama is under first-year head coach Kane Womack, and while they may be one of the worst FBS schools, they have a quarterback name who has been around for a while. Jake Bentley originally went to South Carolina before he transferred to Utah, and he will use his last year of eligibility with the Panthers. South Carolina's quarterback room is one of the weirdest in the country, as originally Luke Doty was going to be the guy, but after he got hurt, Zeb Nolan will be the dude. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and played at Iowa State before he would decide to transfer to North Dakota State. Trey Lance obviously beat him out, but Nolan decided to become a graduate assistant for the Gamecocks. Because of the extra year of eligibility, though, Nolan decided to go back out for the quarterback position, and he won the job, and he'll be the day one starter for them, which is just absolutely crazy. Under second-year head coach Jeff Scott, the USF Bulls are trying to turn it around and find their next great quarterback since Quentin Flowers. In comes Cade Fortin. He was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2018, who originally went to North Carolina. Sam Howell ended up beating him out, and Fortin transferred to the USF last year, where he was the starter, and he will once again be back this year. Southern Miss lost Jack Abraham to Mississippi State, so they added a transfer for themselves. Trey Lowe was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, and originally took his talents to West Virginia. After not playing much there, he transferred to Southern Miss, where he'll now be the starting quarterback for the Eagles. Stanford lost Davis Mills to the NFL, so they will have a 2-man battle for that quarterback spot. Tanner McKee and Jack West were both 4-star recruits coming out of high school, and both of those guys are trying to establish them as QB1. They open up against Kansas State, and they gotta figure it out soon, and the Stanford program has been on a downfall, so I'm a little bit concerned. Dino Babers had Syracuse football on top of the world in 2018, but after Eric Dungey left, the quarterback spot has been a struggle. Rex Culpepper saw some time there, and Garrett Schrader transferred in, but former 4-star recruit Tommy DeVito is back for his 3rd straight year of starting. He has struggled a lot so far and is one of the worst quarterbacks in the ACC, but the potential is there and he needs to show up or Babers won't have a job. TCU has fallen off a little bit under Gary Patterson, and some could argue it's because of quarterback play. They finally have a solid option in Max Duggan, as he's one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the country and someone I believe will break out. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Iowa, and so far in 2 years, he's been pretty good for the Horned Frogs, and I'm pumped to see what his 2021 will look like. Temple lost their quarterback Anthony Russo to Michigan State, so Rod Carey had to find a new man in the transfer portal, and he settled on DeJuan Mathis. Mathis originally committed to Ohio State, but eventually flipped to Georgia, and after a brain tumor scare, he was cleared to play. He started their season opener against Arkansas last year, but struggled tremendously, and he will now look to save his career with the Owls. Jarek Warrantano is finally gone from Tennessee, but first-year head coach Josh Heupel had to find a new man, and he had plenty of options. They had a couple guys transfer in, including Joe Milton. He was called the next Cam Newton coming out of high school, and as a 4-star player, chose to go to Michigan. He struggled in 2020, though, and decided to enter the portal, where he settled on Tennessee. Milton has all the potential and one of the highest ceilings of any quarterback in the country. We're going to see if he can put it all together. Harrison Bailey and Hendon Hooker are waiting for his spot. Many thought Casey Thompson would be the starting quarterback for Texas after he showed out in the Alamo Bowl against Colorado. Unfortunately, the son of a former Sooners legend did not make the cut, and a Texas high school football legend by the name of Hudson Card will be the starter. He's one of the top quarterbacks in his class, and Card's going to do great things in Steve Sarkisian's offense. Texas A&M will lose quarterback Kellen Mond, who was seemingly there forever, and Jimbo Fisher will have to find his next guy. Unfortunately, he will not have to look very far, as former Texas high school football legend Haynes King is now stepping in and has been named the starter. He was a high 4-star recruit, and I think he has one of the highest ceilings of any quarterbacks in the nation, and I am pumped to watch what he will do. Jake Spavital used to be at Texas A&M before he took the head coaching job at Texas State. He has found his quarterback and another Texas high school football kid in Brady McBride. He originally took his talents to Memphis from the class of 2018, but decided to transfer to the Bobcats, and he will now be the starting quarterback for Texas State. Matt Wells is one of the hottest seats in the country, and he will need his quarterback to step up and play well. Alan Bowman left for Michigan, so he grabbed a transfer from the portal by the name of Tyler Shuck. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school and a top 100 player, but after starting a couple games for Oregon, it was clear he was not meant for their system, and he decided to get a clean start in Lubbock. He was named the starter over Baron Morton, and Shuck could have a breakout year and is a name everyone should know. Jason Candle is looking to have the Toledo Rockets back on top of the MAC, as Carter Bradley will be his starter. There is a 3-man race for this job, but Bradley seems to be in good position, as he was a former 3-star recruit out of the state of Florida, and I want the Rockets to be good again. Troy's starting quarterback is someone that you're probably not familiar with, but I am, as since I'm a Mizzou fan. Taylor Powell actually was a quarterback at Missouri for quite a while, and he transferred to Troy, where he will now be named the starting quarterback, and I'm really pumped to watch what he can do. Tulane will open up their football season against the Oklahoma Sooners, and they had an interesting quarterback battle go on. It was between Michael Pratt and Keon Howard, and it looks like Howard's going to get the nod. He was a top 40 quarterback in the class of 2016, and originally took his talents to Southern Miss, but he has since transferred to the Green Wave, and we'll see how he does against the Sooners this weekend. Tulsa was one of the breakout teams of the 2020 season and had a superstar in Zaven Collins. They also had a great player at the quarterback spot, and his name was Zach Smith, and he's back in 2021. He was a 3-star recruit, and he originally took his talents to Baylor, but after not playing, he decided to transfer to Tulsa, and he has found his home with the Golden Hurricane. UCF is one of the premier Group of 5 schools, and they have a very high ceiling going into 2021. Gus Malzahn is now the head coach there, and he has an established quarterback in Dillon Gabriel. While he was not a 4-star recruit, he was one of the top freshman quarterbacks in the country last year, as Gabriel was a top 5 passer and could be a trendy 2022 NFL draft prospect if he puts it all together. But either way, he should lead the Knights to a great year. Chip Kelly is now in year 4 and his seat is on fire. Thankfully, he returns a very experienced quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was a borderline 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he started right away. He's had a pretty good career for the Bruins so far, and he had a pretty solid showing against Hawaii last week, but his first real test will come against LSU. Unfortunately, UConn is one of the saddest football programs in the nation right now, and the quarterback spot is not much better. The Huskies have struggled, but Jack Zergiotis is the guy right now. He was a 2-star recruit and not even in the top 3,000 in his class, but maybe he'll put it all together and help UConn have a good year. I doubt it, but I hope he does. Walt Bell is trying to help UMass become one of the better football programs in the independent leagues, and he's going to have some help from a former transfer. Tyler Lytle was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2017, and after spending a couple years at Colorado, he has since transferred to the Minutemen, where he will be the starter this year, and I look forward to seeing what he'll do. Everyone thinks because Tate Martell decided to enroll at UNLV that he will be the starter, but it does not look like that will be the case right now. The guy that will likely get the job is Justin Rogers. He was a former top 100 recruit coming out of the state of Texas and originally took his talents to TCU. He struggled to see the field while he was a Horned Frog and decided to go down a level to the Mountain West, where I think he'll be the starter at quarterback. USC always has good quarterbacks, and that is no different as Kedon Slovis is back and better than ever. He was a late rising 3-star recruit in the class of 2019, and after JT Daniels went down, Slovis was forced to be the starter. He had one of the best freshman seasons for any quarterback in college football history, and after a little bit of a down year in 2020, I think he'll bounce back in a big way in 2021, and will try to help USC win the Pac-12. UTEP football is in the same boat as UConn, as they have just not been that great. Their quarterback didn't even have a 24/7 sports page, but his name is Gavin Hardison. He started 7 games for the Miners last year and will be back as a starter in 2021, and he's a guy to keep an eye on. UTSA football may have one of the best running backs in the country in Sincere McCormick, but the quarterback spot is a little bit more questionable. The guy who will likely be there is Frank Harris, and coming out of the state of Texas, he was a 3-star recruit. I'm not sure what to expect out of him, but with McCormick as the running back, the QB will definitely get some breathing room, and we'll see if the Roadrunners can become one of the better teams in their conference. Utah football has been very consistent over the last few years, and they typically have pretty good quarterback play. This year will be no different, as since Cameron Rising lost the starting quarterback spot, Charlie Brewer will be the guy. Brewer was only a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, and his brother Michael played at both Texas Tech and Virginia Tech, but Brewer was a consistent starter for Baylor over the last few years, and decided to transfer to Utah for his last year of eligibility, and he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Jordan Love is the biggest quarterback name to come out of Utah State, but new head coach Blake Anderson is trying to find his guy. As of right now, it's going to come down to Logan Bonner and Andrew Peasley, but I think Bonner will get the job. He wasn't a huge name coming out of high school, but he has been a consistent starter for Blake Anderson when he was at Arkansas State, and I think Bonner is going to be our guy when they suit up in week 1. Vanderbilt is headed into a new era of football under Clark Lee, and they at least have somewhat of a quarterback in Ken Seals. Seals was a big-time name in the Texas high school football scene and decided to go to Vanderbilt. He started right away and had a quietly good year. I'm not sure how great he's going to do in this offense or if he has a lot of talent around him, but I think Ken Seals is a good place to start. The Virginia Cavaliers have one of the best kept secrets in all of college football in Brennan Armstrong. The left-handed quarterback was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, but he was someone who blew up late. After Bryce Perkins left, he took over, and last year he looked pretty good as he led into a win over North Carolina, and I expect him to get better in 2021. Justin Fuente has lost the faith of the Virginia Tech fan base, and the quarterback spot is not looking that good for him. The guy who will likely be under center is Braxton Burmeister. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, but he decided to go to Oregon, and when he was eventually beat out by Justin Herbert, he left. He settled on Virginia Tech, and after a couple of starts in his career, he'll likely be that guy going into 2021, and we'll have to see what happens. Wake Forest has one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country in Sam Hartman. He went to the same high school as Will Grier, but was not ultra recruited. He played a lot as a freshman, but after an injury, Jamie Newman took over, and since then, Hartman has regained the starting spot. He's had a pretty good career, and Dave Clawson's offense is in good hands with Hartman at the helm. Since Chris Peterson left, Jimmy Lake has been trying to keep the Washington football program near the top of the Pac-12. The quarterback play was a little bit difficult last year, but it looks like there's a two-man race for the job in 2021. It'll come down to Dylan Morris and Sam Heward. Morris is the more experienced guy, but Heward was a top 15 player in the class of 2021 and is the future of the program. But as of right now, I think Morris will get the nod, but we'll see a good share of both guys. Washington State is in a similar quarterback battle under second-year head coach Nick Rolovic. They'll return last year's starter Jaden DeLaura and bring in Tennessee grad transfer Jarrett Guarantano. I really hope they go at DeLaura instead of Guarantano, but we'll probably see a dose of both of those guys as well. West Virginia is going into year 3 under Neil Brown, and they finally have some consistency at the quarterback play. Jarrett Dagey is the starting quarterback. Dagey took the job from Austin Kendall and has not looked back ever since, and I think he can have a breakout 2021 season. Western Kentucky is trying to get back to being one of the better schools in their conference, and they brought in one of the best FCS quarterbacks of all time in Bailey Zappi. He put up numbers at Houston Baptist, and in an air raid style offense, I think he will do tremendous for the Hilltoppers and can be one of the best kept secrets in the nation. Western Michigan has the best returning quarterback in the MAC, as Caleb Ellaby will be back and better than ever. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and really broke out onto the scene last year, and I'm pumped to see how he will do leading this Broncos offense. The Wisconsin Badgers are looking to have a bounce-back 2021 campaign, and it'll all be put on the shoulders of Graham Mertz. He was a 4-star late-rising recruit coming out of Kansas City, and instead of going to schools like Bama, he decided to go play for Wisconsin. He had a tremendous first game, so we really didn't get to see a full dose of what Mertz can do, but he has the ceiling to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, if not the country. After hours of researching and recording, we finally get to our last guy in Sean Chambers. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and has recently been named the starting quarterback for the Wyoming Cowboys. While he probably won't be as good as Josh Allen, I'm excited to see what he can do in Laramie, and I'm excited that this video is now done. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button, as I would really appreciate that. Let me know who your team is, who your favorite quarterback is, and anyone I left off the list. You're not going to want to miss out on any college football content on this channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out all my other videos on the end screen. And I'm going to go to bed.